Let me know. Let me know when, okay? Oh, the live. Yeah, yeah, live. You got to click that live thing.
Yeah, okay. I think we are live. All right.
Okay. All right. Let's see. No, I'm not showing us live. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not showing us live.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I think we are live.
No, still not live. We're still not live.
Yeah, I'm checking it on my phone right now. I can hear us on my phone right now.
Okay. Well, it doesn't
Maybe
it
it takes
doesn't
some
seem
time.
like
Oh wait, really?
unless yeah, if there's a lag, although it's not showing me us live anywhere here. Guys, are we there? Oh yeah, okay. Now I'm showing it live.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, took some
All
time.
right. So can you guys hear us? Let me know if you can hear me. Nice is
Okay, let
weak.
me
Okay.
increase the volume
His,
here. Does this help?
his, his volume. This is like before when I was running OBS.
Yeah.
They couldn't hear me, but you were strong.
Okay, I think this helps. Okay.
Oh, all right. Uh,
All
well,
right.
compared to my big mouth, yeah. All right. Okay, so let's get this going. And Nice has to go check on something while we begin the show, but he'll let us know when he's back.
All right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Okay, but hello
let's get this.
everyone. Yeah, welcome to the live.
Yeah. So are we showing my screen for sure? Nice.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. All right, guys. So Raji had asked us a couple of days ago. We were going to talk, and we said this last week that we were going to talk about retrogrades, and we will. But Raji asked about Yods. I don't know, yesterday or the day before. He asked about stuff, and I was like, oh, great subject because that's how I got started in Uranian astrology. Is Yods. And I know that a lot of people pronounce it Yod, but it's not pronounced Yod. It's Hebrew and it's pronounced Yud. And it definitely does mean the finger of God. That is something that astrologers say, and it happens to be true. So I love this topic because there's a couple of things we know about Yods and a couple of things we're still looking into. But this is how I began my journey into Uranian astrology. And I think this is what got me stuck for the most part. I was I have a Yud in my chart. So I was very curious about Yuds. There's a lot of information about trines and squares and conjunctions and oppositions and grand squares and grand trines and kites. And there's plenty of information about all of these configurations. Now, 40 years ago, there was very little information about Yuds, and they were dismissed pretty pretty quickly by astrologers. They were like, well, it's not really a major midpoint, and usually, Yud holders don't get. I've heard a lot of things that they were never true, and this is information from 40 years ago. Um, oh, people who have Yuds, they're rarely able to accomplish their goals. Those inconjuncts make it difficult. And they all agreed that it was either the finger or the hand of God. That was the one thing they agreed with. But they were very dismissive about its value in a chart. Now, Yuds consist of two planets that are sextile each other 60 degrees, and they use very tight orbs of 1 degree. And those same two planets have to be in conjunct or 150 degrees away from a focal point planet, sharing the same focal point planet. So every Yud is actually a midpoint. Not every midpoint is a Yud, but every Yud is absolutely a midpoint. And very much like Uranian astrology, the one thing that was said about Yuds was that, unlike other aspects, they used a very tight orb of 1 degree. And this was a common denominator. And this may be one of those things that was taken from Uranian astrology as far as the orb and embellished a little bit. I don't know. It's very, very difficult to tell what is true and what is not in the world of astrology. We're not going to get involved in that right now. As I'd said, the Yud consists of two planets that are sextile, 60 degrees of each other. They're also in conjunct, 150 degrees to a focal point. If you have a Yud in your chart, I promise you that this is something you're going to want to examine very, very closely. I have a Yud in my chart, and the focal point of the Yud in my chart, surprise, 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 is Uranus. And the two planets that are sextile and in conjunct Uranus are Mercury and Saturn. So if you understand astrology, we'll get into that in a little bit, what that sort of means in my chart and why I really pursued understanding Yuds. So Kabbalah and astrology have both explored how planets influence the world and people. And the reason I mention Kabbalah is because Yud is a Hebrew word. So astrology's been around since the beginning of time. Thousands of years ago, astrologers, and we've talked about this before on the show, they held power because of their ability to predict not events that happen to people, but celestial events, full moons, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, seeing certain planets in the sky at a certain time. And remember, back then, they didn't have the lights of the cities that we have now. So you could really see the stars back then. I don't know if you've ever traveled out in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, taken a yacht or a trip. And I don't mean, well, I don't know, maybe on a cruise ship. I'm not really sure. I figure there's so many lights. I don't know, but I know that on yachts, if you're out in the middle of the ocean, you can see the stars. You can see unbelievable activity out there, like so many shooting stars. They are not uncommon, by the way. Shooting stars are plentiful in a dark sky. So imagine, thousands of years ago, the ignorance of mankind at the time, and people gave a lot of credibility and they felt that there were special powers that were granted to those that knew how the chart movements were and planets and when there were going to be eclipses. Rulers often impressed and controlled and terrified very ignorant subjects by telling them the gods had spoken to them. There would be a red moon, or there would be, an hour of darkness or a moment of darkness in the middle of a day on a certain day. And this is how a lot of people maintained power, was in using astronomy more so than astrology. So by announcing these extraordinary planetary events, subjects felt that their leaders truly had contact with God or the gods, because this is what they would say. So for many years, astronomy, not astrology, was used to rule the masses. And certainly the Kabbalah, which is thousands of years old and untouched, speaks of astrology and the importance. Now, I'm not fluent in Hebrew, but I do have a friend that is. So, Yods in a chart, we're going to go back and forth between the Kabbalah and astrology here for a couple of minutes. Yods indicate an area of necessary focus for a native. I'm certain of this. The focal point is typically the goal of the native, and the sextile planets are typically the hurdles that the native has to overcome. I believe that yods are very misunderstood in astrology, not just in Uranian astrology. Learning to work toward the yod is what I advise people. Whatever the goal, whatever the focal point planet is, whatever the domain is of that planet, the native is going to have to work hard to get to that goal. The native at some point will be driven or forced to that focal point, and it may be an uncomfortable and unpleasant experience. Sometimes it can be pleasant and it will go back and forth. I assure you, if you have a yud, the points of your yud will be stricken with incredible, striking contrast of just joy and glory and happiness, or utter confusion and despair, almost without question, that this happens, because it is a powerful point in anybody's chart. Anybody possessing a yud, that focal point is definitely going to have a lot of influence on that person's life. So the native is going to have to work and fulfill the purpose of the yud. And this is probably why they say that there's the finger of God or the hand of God involved. And I, as I said, believe that yuds are life purpose indicators. The yud bearers typically have very unique lives. And like I've said, it indicates a life purpose. The two sextile planets that are in conjunct, what you have is you have these two planets that have this equal distribution of energy. It has this sextile, which makes it easy, but this inconjunct, which gives it the friction and the challenge. And in pairing these two energies together, you're, whatever those planets are, you're battling those two focal planets, those two sextile planets, to get to the focal point. Those are those two planets that are sextile are telling you, these are the things that I am challenged with to achieve my goal, which is getting to that focal point. Having a yud in your chart, it's like being an Olympic athlete. First, you have to overcome some sort of physical challenge or disability. If you get a cramp in a pool, you have to keep swimming. If you injure yourself, you have to work out, you have to work that pain out, and you have to work through the pain. That's what having a yud is like. It's like being an Olympic athlete. You have to sacrifice, you have to work through the pain, you have a lot of mistakes, you fall down, You have to get back up again. Wherever a yud is in your chart, you are constantly chronically challenged. And it will appear to the native that the road to the focal point is a minefield. Everything will appear smooth, and suddenly the native, whoever has the mind, you feel trapped, unable to move, without creating some sort of chaos all around you. Yuds are very powerful aspects, and this is what I see in every person's chart that I've ever seen with the yud. They're either paralyzed with fear, or they're running through a minefield, or they're having incredible success. Is that our Becky, our Becca? Hi, Becca. We're talking about yuds. Anyway, the reason we bring our work to David, and this is important, is because it's entirely possible that the unadulterated texts of the Kabbalah, they demonstrate the importance of midpoints in astrology, dating back thousands of years ago. Now, he has knowledge of religion and language, and he can help unravel whether or not this is true. As of right now, this is our hypotheses, and we will get back to everyone as soon as we have some clear answers. But we believe in the same way that Arabic parts were a thing, midpoints were a thing, and this was why there was the mention of yuds in the Kabbalah. And this is also why it's translated and passed through thousands of years in different cultures into astrology, including American, Western. I don't know whether Chinese astrology or even Vedic astrology places any importance on yuds, but Western and Uranian definitely do. So I can tell every single person that I agree with the finger of fate analogy because yods have proven to be very fated. And every chart that I've read with a clear yod also has specific destinies when they look at the focal point of the yod. And there's always a story that they can answer in as far as their yud goes. The yud is going to tell them something about their chart that nothing else in their chart. Just looking at those planets will tell you something very, very clear about, wow, this is something that plagues me, but this is something that I'm driven to it. I have some inexplicable reason that I'm driven to these points. So the sextile planets are definitely the challenges. And if you want to know more about the yuds, join our school, take our classes, and we will definitely help you unfold the yuds in your chart because they are midpoints. Now, I've found that the two planets that work together because they're sextile, being in conjunct presents this bigger challenge than ease. So this is where these two planets require some sort of real understanding of how everything works together. What are the two planets that are sextile and also in conjunct? What do those two planets represent? For example, in my chart, the two planets that are sextile and in conjunct are Mercury, Saturn, and that would indicate for me that I would have to engage in serious thinking for a long period of time in order to achieve my focal point goal in my chart, which is Uranus. Now, when Ruth Brumman rectified my chart, she rectified my chart and adjusted my meridian node to be sitting on that same axis point as my yud. So every deep soul or karmic relationship that I have is tied to this axis point. And this axis point is definitely why we're all here doing Uranian astrology together. because I have had to think and work very, very hard and struggle and get through many, many hurdles and a long period of time and lots of deep thinking and lots of work and lots of discussions involving astrology. And I've had to really develop the courage to be an individual and not go with the with the uh, with the herd. That's been something that's been very true. If you have a yud in your chart, and if Uranus is the focal point of that yud, it's not just an issue with astrology. There's an issue of where is your genius and where is your individual identity? Where is your sense of individualism? How are you going to stand out and be unique? So don't automatically think because if you have Uranus like I do as a focal point, well, oh, it's astrology. In my case, it is. But it also represents your need for individualism, uniqueness, and where is your genius? Where is your brilliance? All right. So, as I said last week, we were going to discuss retrogrades, which I think is very important to give people some understanding of what retrogrades are in Uranian astrology. Retrogrades are always there to review the domain of that planet or TNP. And the only thing that we have that's an angle, a node, the nodes go retrograde. The sun doesn't go retrograde, the moon doesn't go retrograde, neither does the meridian or the ascendant. But the node does. And I think that, the way that it goes retrograde and how often, because in Uranian astrology, that represents relationships. That makes a lot of sense because we're always having to redo and review our personal relationships. So check whether the nodes are retrograde if you're having issues, not just, the planets. Now, they do matter. Retrograde planets matter very much in Uranian astrology, just like they do in other astrology. This is one of those factors that we have to think about. When Mercury is retrograde, you have to review your areas of thinking and your communications. How do you speak to people? Who are you talking to? Where are things clear headed? And remember, when a planet such as Mercury or any of the personal planets are retrograde, the miscommunication is a two-way street. Not only are you miscommunicating and people don't understand what you're saying, you also don't understand what other people, you're not really getting what they're saying. When Venus is retrograde, look at the area in your chart where Venus is, and what you're really talking about, and what you really need to be reviewing is your love nature, your sense of taste, what seems to be important to you aesthetically, your sense of art. Those are going to be the issues that you're going to have to review. When Mars is retrograde, it's your actions. Potentially, it involves your work, your activity. It could be a private activity, a hobby, or it can be your day to day work. Jupiter. When Jupiter is retrograde, you have to examine in your chart where you are being equitable. What's going on in your life that needs to be adjusted in terms of equity and fairness, and also growth. Now, think about how these two things work together. That the point in your chart that indicates equitable distribution also is the factor for growth. So wherever you are most fair, you will grow the most. This is why it's important to examine when Jupiter is retrograde. And where is Jupiter? What areas in your chart do you need to grow and develop in? What areas in your chart and in your life do you need to examine how fair and equitable you are in your behavior and your activities? We mentioned Uranus earlier. Where is your genius? Where is your individualism, your ability to stand against the herd? Where is your focus? Everybody has something that makes them a genius. Every single person has something that they excel in and that they can or are brilliant in. And it is the job of every single person to figure out what that is and do that. So every time Uranus is retrograde, you need to re examine where you're walking alone or where you're standing with the herd, where your genius, and genius comes by yourself, by the way, or where you're in those groups. So that's something you need to examine. And it's retrograde right now, by the way. Saturn is typically about career and responsibility. Anytime Saturn goes retrograde, you're going to have to examine something in your life that you need to be responsible for, or something's going to come up again that you have to be responsible for. Your career issues, too, can be revisiting themselves during Saturn retrogrades. So these are pretty important. The intangible things in our lives, our what what is covered by Neptune. So anything that's hidden, it can be a hidden illness, it can be a secret, it can be a spiritual belief. Anything that's hidden, it can even be an enemy. So when Neptune goes retrograde, we have to examine the intangible areas of our life, the things that are hidden, and in particular, take some time to examine your enemies. If you've been having problems with people, this is a good time to look and see whether or not they might be actual enemies in your life. For Pluto, when Pluto is retrograde, it's addressing the area of your life where you need change and where you need to progress. So anytime Pluto is retrograde in your chart, examine where in your chart, what axis point is it sitting on, particularly by the way, when they're stationary. Wherever these planets are stationary, the degrees that they are stationary at during a retrograde process, those are going to be the degrees that you want to really examine in your chart as far as an axis point and to be able to determine what you need to be paying attention to fix or repair your life. Now, I am aware that nobody really talks about the trans Neptunes as having their own, they always say that they're um, higher octaves of the other 8 planets, and that's not true. When Capito is retrograde, because the trans Neptunes do go retrograde, when Capito is retrograde, you're going to have to revisit the area of your life that involves family and groups. So if you have corporations, if you have particular areas that you're a membership of, if you're a member of the boys club, a gym, your family issues, if you work for a company or a corporation, because Capito rules corporations, those are going to be the areas that are going to have to be reviewed and reassessed in your life during a Capito retrograde. Not surprising, during a Hades retrograde, you're going to have to re-examine, of all things, your problems. Where is this karma coming from? Look at the half sums on your Hades. Look at every one of them to come to understand what problems or what karmic issues you're dealing with during a Hades retrograde. Focus on them. Remember, Hades is about reparation, things that need reparation. So when Hades goes retrograde, get ready to go to work and fix the things that are areas or problems in your life. wherever that lands in your chart. Excuse me. When Zeus is retrograde, it involves anything that is a creation of yours. If you're a do it yourself person, that's one of the things that may be what's happening. Any area of your life where you're impulsive, any area of your life that you are quick to jump at. These are the areas that need to be reviewed when Zeus is retrograde. Reevaluate your creations, reevaluate your impulses, assess whether or not they're working for you or against you. That's what matters during a Zeus retrograde. When Kronos is retrograde, this is your chance to examine where you possess the ability to lead or where you're following the wrong leaders. And this ties into your sense of security. Because where Kronos is unstable, there's going to be some element of insecurity in your life. So keep in mind that when you're looking at a Kronos retrograde, you're having to examine your own leadership skills and abilities, as well as who are you following? And what are you getting from that? And what security do you get or will you get ultimately from those Kronos positions? So this is also something you cannot ignore in your chart. You shouldn't ignore any retrograde. A pollen retrograde in your chart is going to be an indicator of where you're having success, and it's based on your ability to learn. So wherever you see a pollen retrograde in your chart, examine what it is you're learning. We say, oh, well, I'm out of school. Nobody is ever out of school. Every single day of your life, you should be aspiring to learn something new. If you're not learning something new, I don't mean to insult you, but you're on some level a little bit useless. You're just taking up air for no reason. You should be teaching people and learning new things every single day. So a pollen is always going to indicate an area in your life that you're, when it's retrograde, it's like, listen, if you want to be successful in a particular project at a particular time, look at where a pollen is where it's when it's retrograde, because this means this is what you need to review to reassess how you're going to achieve your success. That's why it's tied to your ability to learn. When Admetos is retrograde, you have to examine the things that are in your life that have been permanent or where you establish permanence or are stubborn. There are some areas of life that you simply can't adjust. You just have to go through it, but you do have to reevaluate during an Admetos retrograde. Where are you being stubborn? Where are you stuck? What areas of your life have lasting permanence that seem to keep coming back and keep coming back no matter how it's like the mafia, the line in the movie. Every time you try to come every time you try to get out, Admetos pulls you back in. This is how you have to examine and why you have to examine Admetos in a retrograde. When we see Volcanus retrograde in a chart specifically, it's going to be addressing an area in your chart where you're giving something energy and where it's having a great influence in your life. That area is something you're putting a lot of time and energy into, and that's an area that's having a heavy influence and impact in your life. So wherever you see Volcanus, again, like every one of these planets that are retrograde and trans Neptunes, look at the half sums on the axis point to tell you what it is you need to work on. And as far as where you're expending that energy and how that energy is influencing you, and also how you're being and how you're influencing, using that energy to influence others. Don't forget that every one of these is a double edged sword. It's what you're experiencing and what you're doing. When Poseidon is retrograde, you have to examine your divine doctrine, your internal and divine doctrine, and your internal vision as far as spirituality. What is your true spiritual goal and self? So, wherever Poseidon is retrograde, these are the areas that you examine in your life and how this has importance around you. And you'll notice that a lot of times when you think or feel that something is going on, or, is Mercury retrograde, something's happening, there's a lot of planets that are retrograde. And all of these different areas in your life can be affected. Mercury doesn't affect everything, it merely affects your communications. All of these other planets and trans Neptunes affect these other areas in your life. Now, we're going to answer any questions that you have. And by way of questions, we say that we appreciate your contribution to the school. One of the contributions that you can make to the school is by asking us the questions you have. I have seen this before. I have seen people come to our classes, listen to our podcasts, and then go online and ask other people in other in other places what these things mean. You should ask us before you ask other people. This way you have the balance of, more than one opinion. And certainly I believe that we've demonstrated our expertise in Uranian astrology. And we've certainly tried to help all of you. Becca, why did you change your name? I like Becca though. We should change it. We should change it on the server too because it's so much easier. Anyway, does anyone have any questions with regard to the retrogrades in their charts or Yods in their charts? Excuse me while I drink some more water. My throat's a little scratchy. And by the way, if you want to know if a planet or a trans Neptune is retrograde, there's an ephemeris, but also in the app, if you look at the app, here, let me show you this. If we were to go to the app, just do this. So that's where I'm at. On right here. If you go and you go to the app, any of the RXs that you see, you'll see what's retrograde. So currently, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are retrograde. And Admetos. So if there is a Uranian ephemeris, if you want to go get the Uranian ephemeris, but a quick look, just go look at the planetary table on the app. The app will tell you. You want to see the Yud in my chart? All right. No problem. There it is. Mercury, Saturn, Uranus. Mercury is in Pisces, Saturn is in Capricorn. They are sextile each other. These two planets are in conjunct my Uranus. My Uranus is in Leo. See? Mercury at 348, Saturn at 288, and Uranus at 137.5, almost 138. See? Right there. Here's my meridian. Here's my node. Look at the midpoint stories on your Yods, people. It'll absolutely tell you what these Yods are. How many times have you heard me talk about all the different people and the problems and the astrologers and the games? What did I tell you about the expensive astrology? And obviously, at some point, it'd be nice if we make some money. There's the focal point, is the Uranus. We know what that is. So my soul unions, my close inner bonds, all of them are sitting on this focal point for astrology. When I look at this, I know that people are thinking one thing that I am not thinking when I look at this part of my chart. There are organizations all over the world, astrology organizations. They are their own power and like they're like a political party or a political group. They're powerful associations and organizations. And I've said it for quite a few years that it's a combined collective, all of these people together. So we see how this is played out in my chart. I'm not really someone um, who gets along with other astrologers or Uranian astrologers because I disagree with them. I disagree with their practices. I disagree with their vague statements. I disagree with the way that I think that they mislead people with their work. So it's, it's a thing where I am not popular or friendly within that group. Obviously, here's the Mercury Saturn. I think that it's safe to say that I'm very fond of this astrology and my work. And that it's been an enormous part of my intellectual product in life and a huge part of my life experience. Would you say that this is like pretty clear as far as what this is? And if we keep going, look at this sitting right here. In the future, my future with astrology, we keep going through my entire chart and we examine my yud, we're going to see that it definitely represents what's already happened in my life and what I have spoken about publicly, which is a lot of very unpleasant experiences to get to where we're at right now to give you the product that we give you, the app and the classes and our time, the server. Every bit of this has come, by way of a personal struggle. Other than nice and a little bit of help from a few people here and there, I have actually had more people working against me than with me, despite all of my trying to help people. But that doesn't mean that I'm supposed to quit or give up. This is a yud in my chart. I have to do it whether those people are going to, behave badly or not. That's on them. So do you have any other questions about yuds or retrogrades? Are we all good? No, definitely not. There's a couple of, if you don't want to do the math and figure out whether or not you have a yud, there are a couple of free software things online that'll tell you whether or not you have any yuds in your chart. And they're pretty good because they make sure that they're qualifying the yuds based on a tight orb of 1 degree. That's another thing that strikes me is that all the way back in the Hebrew texts and the Kabbalah and every description, so thousands of years ago, they knew the importance of a tight orb in astrology. Have you ever looked at your chart to see if you have yuds, Raji, or do you have a yud? Is that why you're curious? Whoop, let's not drop that. With Uranian, you check to see the degrees. If you think that something's so here, 137 to 348, that's 150 degrees. Okay? This 137 to 288, also 150 degrees and sextile each other. These are 60 degrees apart. So the way to check with Uranian astrology is the math. If you want to do it the easy way, there are, I forget which site it is that I think actually shows you um, all of the aspects in a chart. I think it's Astro Theme, if I'm not mistaken. Like where they show you the chart. They're a midpoint, and to that end, I think you should just we should consider that a yud is just a more important midpoint than all the other midpoints in their chart. If you have a yud, that just means it's something that you need to really spend some time looking at because it has some real powerful value in your life and in your chart. And if you're not sure how to break it down, that's why we tell you, come here, talk to us. We'll work with you and help you to understand and unfold your yud. Self-teaching leads to a lot of mistakes. You should definitely work with somebody who's going to check your work and the validity of your work. Any other questions about yuds or retrogrades or anything else in the world under the sun? Do we know? Are there any other questions? You should probably start using the thing to talk more. I don't know. We just end up with so many sound problems. Yeah, listen, wherever you have a yud, you definitely need to examine it. But remember, the entirety of Uranian astrology is midpoints. The whole theory of Uranian, it's Uranian astrology works like a dowsing rod, that you need two planets as energizers to 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 get the energy to focus in one particular area. So when a dowsing rod finds water or finds a planet, this is where you have an event, you have a creation, something is going to happen versus a blank or something that's absent. So I think that everyone needs to remember that there are certain things in Western astrology that Uranian astrology definitely keeps and applies. We don't discard retrogrades or the value of retrogrades. We don't dismiss, rather, than dismiss Yods as being some sort of minor aspect in a chart. We elevate Yods. Yods are the holy grail in midpoints. So if you have Yods, you definitely need to focus on them. They are going to have more power than other midpoints in your chart. And I believe that the reason they're going to have more power is because of the dowsing rod factor versus a grand square, which Roger, you asked, like, to talk about a grand square. A grand square in a chart would mean that every planet is sitting in the same spot or the same degree on a Uranian astrology chart. So you would just be reading all of those planets together. You would read the two outer planets as a midpoint, and then, as the half sum, and then the two inner planets would be used as focal points. Most of the big patterns end up as being midpoints. Anything that has importance, or the importance in Uranian astrology is midpoints. All of the big patterns don't end up being midpoints. It's that if we look at them, if we look at a grand square and we're looking at everything in the same degree, it's not likely that every, say, four planets are going to be in the exact same degree, minute, and second, which means that one planet is going to come first, another planet is going to come second, third, and fourth, which means the first and the fourth planet are going to be read as the half sum, and the second and the third planet are going to be read as the focal points of a midpoint. Anything that's a midpoint, the focal point is going to be the potent energy. So when you're looking at, for example, when you're looking at rules for planetary pictures, this half sum, it has its value. But where that half sum rests, this has way more power and influence than the half sum. This is going to be the result. That focal point planet is going to be the result. And in a lot of cases, the half sum in a chart is the way we look at a chart, or we ask a chart the question, will I be successful? Does your meridian fall? Well, no, this is a bad, Jupiter is a bad thing. You could ask that. Will I be successful in this endeavor? But here, Jupiter, Uranus. Will I have material success? Where does your meridian fall? Does it fall at your Jupiter Uranus focal point? Has your Jupiter Uranus half thumb moved to your meridian? Has your Jupiter Uranus half thumb moved to your Aries point? Has it moved to your ascendant? Have any of these planets moved to your Jupiter Uranus half thumb? This is when you look at the singular planet and you say, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to have. That this, for example, on this day, this is going to be a lucky decision. Or maybe it's going to create sudden losses. Learn to use the rule book as more of a guidebook. We just know that Uranian astrology works. And those triple patterns and those midpoints, I think, give us more clarity than any other astrology we have or that's being used out there today. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we use this, and it's why we offer the app. The app is there so that all of you can prove this for yourselves. And when you can't find something, don't imagine that you are an expert and you know. Ask us. That's what we're here for. Certainly, anyone who's reached out to us for astrology help, we're helping them. You know what I do need to discuss is Discord. If you're joining us on Discord, leave your Discord on. We're not sitting on Discord 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, waiting for people to join. Or maybe Nice and I need to change it so that people can just sit there and wait for us to come along. We have a lot of people trying to join the server, and when I get back to you, you guys are nowhere around. I send you private messages, or I'll send you a message inside the server. If I can't talk to you, which means when you come onto the server, get a headset on. So if we're unable to speak to you, we can't admit you to the server. It's not automatic that when you join the server, it's an automatic admittance to the school. We vet everyone who comes there. People are dealing with their private lives. We like to speak freely here. So there's definitely a circle of trust on the server. But you do have to wait for us to, and give us a chance to admit you. I think I've gotten like 10 people that are sitting there that have tried to be admitted, and I haven't been able to speak to you, and you don't respond back. And I'm not sitting on the computer all day long. I'm sorry to report. So be patient with us. I think that covers it. Do you have anything you want to tell anybody? Nice.
Oh, I'm fine. I think you gave like a really clear explanation already, so I think that's great.
Okay. So we don't have, anything that we're planning or scheduling for 2 weeks from now. So if there's a topic that you guys want to discuss, let us know in the next. Yeah, let us know in the next couple of days so we can prepare. There's Becky. Becca's saying nice. She's back as Becca now instead
Yeah, I saw that.
of just me. We're gonna change.
Yeah, we talked a little bit.
We're gonna change your name on the server, girl.
Right.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
glad
come
to
out
have
as
you
Becca.
back.
Yeah, if you're gonna come on YouTube as yourself, you can be yourself on the server too. All right, so listen, we're gonna hop on the server. I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah,
So we're gonna hop on.
I think we are good.
Yeah, we're gonna hop on the server.
All right.
And again, if you're joining Discord, be patient. And Nice and I, give us a couple of minutes. We have to talk about. We're obviously gonna have to make some changes on Discord.
Okay.
All right. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Like we said, if there's a topic that you guys want to discuss, get with us in the next couple of days. Do not tell us on Friday, okay, 2 weeks from now. Do not tell us in
Right.
13 days. Oh, I want to discuss. No, 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 no. If you have a topic, get in touch with us in the next couple of days. If there's something you want to discuss, if you are a person who wants your chart evaluated on our live stream, send us your data. Send us where you live now, what your question is, and your birth data.
Mm-hmm.
Month, day, in this order, by the way, because Europeans and people from around the world do it in a different order. Make sure that you put the month first, then the day, then the year, your exact time. And because of the app, you can put the name of the hospital that you were born in, and it'll go right to the address when we do your chart. So if you have questions and you want your chart examined, send us that information too over the course of the next couple of weeks. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.